Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Wells. I write horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and I talk about games on the internet. I'm very excited today to be talking about a brand new role playing game that is only a few months old, to my knowledge, and I've never heard of it before, but I got a copy of it, and it looks really cool. You can see here from my little image of it that it's actually narrower. I could have adjusted these the size of this window so that it wouldn't show borders on the side, but I wanted to specifically point out that it is a little narrower than a typical adventure is. And I also wanted to point out that this art is gorgeous. The book is called Liminal. It comes from, I believe, a Kickstarter. And I always am very leery of Kickstarter games because some of them I love and some I've been really burned by. This one is fantastic. I was not part of the Kickstarter, but I'm glad that I had a chance to pick one up after market. So this is an urban fantasy game, similar to Dresden Files or Vampire or whatever other urban fantasy games you play and love. It's set very specifically in England, and I just want to gush about the art for a while. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful game. The art that they put into this is fantastic. There's only a handful of pictures in it that are less than stellar, in my opinion. Anyway, it's all just wonderful. So, let's talk about this for a minute. Characters. In fact, let's go into character creation here, so we can, I think, learn the rules that way. The idea is that your player group is a crew, a group of people who are connected in some way to the hidden supernatural world. Whether you are an actual supernatural creature, like a werewolf or a changeling or something, or just someone who has learned magic, or someone who is clued in. And in fact, one of the kind of concepts is they call it a clued in mortal, clued up criminal. So let's take a look at this actually. Character concepts. Let's get away from the blue butt there and look at something else. Here we go. The face and the gutter mage. So character creation is a little fluid in that there aren't really classes and there aren't really races, there aren't species. There's just different options you can take. And so you have a certain number of points to spend on skills. And so if you want to be, for example, a gutter mage, they say these could be some really valuable skills: awareness, conviction, stealth, lore, streetwise, survival, taunt. And then there are traits, and the traits are something like you would expect to be in an advantage-disadvantage system, or the way Savage Worlds has edges and hindrances. This has traits and limitations. And so if you are a gutter mage, for example, one of your traits would be artifact, blessing and curses, divination, geomancy, the sight, shape changer, weathermonger. So the points that you have for character creation, you can put them into anything. And if you want to grab something like divination, well then congratulations, you can do divination now. And you can do that as a gutter mage, or you could do it as a face. The face idea is, a diplomat who helps the different supernatural groups interact with each other. Let's look at this academic wizard. They have the same divination thing. They have some other different stuff. And so anyone from whatever background can just kind of choose whatever traits they want and thereby build a character class out of nothing, which is a really cool idea. Gives you a lot of freedom to kind of do whatever, which again is kind of Savage Worldsy. And then of course there are limitations, and the limitations are ways of kind of tempering your power a little bit, giving you access to extra skill points or extra trait points, so that you can, make yourself more powerful, but still balanced by having to have these other limitations or disadvantages. And then there's 3 focuses in the game, and I guess that's the closest thing that this game has to a character class system. Is you are either a magician, or you're tough, or you're, what's the third one? You're determined. Okay, So that's either you have strength of will, you have strength of body, or you have strength of magic. And those are, you pick what your focus is going to be, and then within that you can kind of do anything you want. And so there's a lot of really interesting things that can be done here, up to and including you can be a werewolf, which is really neat. And you could take this entire thing without shape changer and still have a lot of the same traits, but in a very different way. And it's just I like their character creation system, is what I'm saying. It's got several different skills. The way that skills work, the way that most die rolls in the game, in fact, work, is on a 2d6 system. So you roll 2 dice, you add them together, and you have to hit a target number. So let's say that you have a skill of... Is there a little table? Okay. It explains that 1 point in something makes you okay at it. 2 points in a skill makes you very good at it. And then they can go up to 5. And the baseline difficulty number you're trying to hit is 8. And 2d6 is, rather than the completely random spread you get with a d20, rolling 2d6 you get this beautiful bell curve with 7 right in the middle as the most common number, and then 6 and 8, and then 5 and 9, and so on, are each successively less likely to do anything. And so if you are okay at something and you're likely to roll a 7 on the dice, then 1 point in the skill means you'll probably hit an 8, and there you go. If you have 2 points in the skill, which makes you very good, makes you competent and skilled at it, then you would still need to, then you roll that 7, you're going to breeze through. Statistically, you're very likely to succeed at something. But difficulty numbers can go up. If something is especially hard, it might be a 10, it might even be a 12, and that's when you're going to really rely on either lucky rolls or really high numbers in your skills. It's a very simple system, but it's a really neat system, and it'll be familiar to most people. The fact that you're rolling 2 dice, 2 6-sided dice instead of 1 d20, doesn't really throw anybody off, and the fact that you're just roll the dice, add your number, beat a target, is just standard stuff for everything. The game does include some sample characters that are in fact used throughout. There's this Igraine, there's Steven the werewolf, there's Naomi the wizard, and there's Aaron Kaminsky, who's like a former cop who learned about the supernatural world. And their pictures and their quotations show up all through the book, which is a nice little bit of continuity. There's also a whole chapter on how to build a crew. So once you've built your characters, which is very simple, then you're putting together a crew. See, here's a little quote by Stephen Dunstan, the werewolf. What is your, focus as a crew? What are you good at? Who are your allies? What kinds of things, what kinds of stories are you going to be involved with? What kind of weaknesses do you have? And there's just a really neat way that everyone works together to build all this stuff. What relationships do you have with perhaps other crews or with the major factions of the world? All great stuff. Chapter on magic, which is great. The chapter on rules is incredibly short and simple, and I basically already explained everything to you when we talked about the die rolls. Magic has all the different kinds of magic, including necromancy, including shape-changing. There's all these neat things. Then it has a pretty impressive selection of bad guys, or let's say other factions, NPCs. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and they can switch sides depending on where you are. The Council of Merlin is the group of wizards, kind of analogous in some ways to the White Council in Dresden Files. They're the group of wizards who control everything and have controlled everything for a long time, and they set rules and they don't like people breaking them. And of course your crew is possibly going to be breaking them all the time. So they've got good descriptions of the factions. They've got little descriptions of the people that you might interact as part of those factions. How are the Fae set up? How are they different? How are they organized? What kinds of, this woman is involved with the Mercury Collegium. And so you get all this neat stuff. And then we have Chapter 7, Liminal Britain, and Northern Ireland. So it talks all about the land, and it goes through, in some cases, city by city. What is Belfast like in this supernatural version of the world? What is Cairn, whatever that's called? What does that say? I can't read that font. Is that an N? Caernarfon. Yep, that is an N. Caernarfon. Durham, Glasgow, Liverpool, London. Really interesting world information that is a lot of fun to read through. Has a huge game master section to talk about how to run the games and how to present things. It has kind of a monster section. We looked at the factions, but then here's just some very basic stuff like if you want to run into Fae, can we have some stats for Fae? We absolutely can. What about changelings? Of course we can. Ghosts, different kinds of ghosts, lots and lots of monster stats and NPC stats. And then last of all, there are 2 sample cases. One is called the Goblin Market and one is called the Book of Blood. And these are just sample adventures that you can run your players through and kind of take the game through its paces, get a feel for how it works. It's really interesting. It's really compelling and cool. And I think I've said that a couple of different times, so I hope you believe it. Anyway, the game is called, again, let's go back up to the top, Liminal. And I really, really enjoy it a lot. As urban fantasy games go, this one is doing some new things that I haven't seen before, and it's doing some old things really well. And so if you are interested in this kind of a game, in an urban fantasy, definitely check out Liminal. The company is producing new adventures pretty constantly. There is one came out um, just today, in fact, and then there was another one last week. And the first one is one that I have called Pax Londinium. I'm going to be reviewing that one soon, I hope, and we'll just see. So, good game with good support from the company, beautiful art, and some really simple but useful rules. Anyway, Liminal by Paul Mitchener. Check it out. My name is Dan Wells, and you are awesome.